are now entering the horror sanctum.
Hello and welcome back to the Horror Sanctum podcast. I'm Jay, along with John and TJ, and we're back with another guest-filled episode. Today we're joined by lawyer, actress, mail girl, the beautiful Honey Gregory.
Aw, thank you.
No relation to my knowledge. I'm also a Gregory.
Oh, cool.
So of course, most people probably know you from your time with Joe Bob Briggs at the Movie Channel and as the TNT mail girl.
Yeah.
Honey, it's an absolute honor to have you on with us.
Thank you. I appreciate it. This is so much fun.
Also on with us today is the equally beautiful Bryan Parkerson, writer and director of the forthcoming horror film Blood Repentance, starring Honey herself. Bryan, welcome, and thank you as well for hanging out with us today.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
We'll just go ahead and dive right in and tell us about you guys' film Blood Repentance.
Ooh. Go ahead, Bryan. This is your movie.
Yeah. It's this has been a really interesting, strange project. It actually started as my first film. It's actually going to be my second film. There's really a lot of backstory to this. If you guys are okay with me sharing it,
Absolutely.
perfect. And John, by the way, I'm really vibing with you, dude. I appreciate the beard, man. Like I'm gonna get along really well. Well, so it all started, I don't know, probably June of 2021, Honey?
What,
When I reached out to you? Or was it June of 2022?
when you first reached out to me?
No,
Oh.
it was like October. It was like September, October of 2021. Gosh, I can't believe it's been that
Okay,
long.
when was I on the show? 22. So yeah, sometime in 21, because we were talking about, you asked me to be on your podcast.
Yeah.
And then I said, why don't we wait a little bit, because I may have some news, because I knew that the production company had been emailing me about being a guest on their show.
Yeah,
So
that was a hard one to sit on. I knew about that before anybody else, and that was like I was like, oh man, I can't say anything. I was so excited about that, and then when you actually appeared at like 1 a.m., I wanted to text you because I thought it was live for some stupid reason, and I was like, dude, it's not live. They pre-record this. But yeah, so late 2021, I kind of hit this, like, I hope it's not a midlife crisis because that would mean I'm going to die young, but I sort of hit this. I don't know, I just realized I wasn't really happy doing what I was doing in my current career path. It's been really good to me, and I'll continue it as long as I can, but I just kind of hit this period where I'm like, I don't want to do this the rest of my life. This is just not, I want to start using, the creative side of my brain more than the technical side. So I just kind of began this deep introspection. I began just kind of exploring, like creative things I could do as a career, because I've always been a very career driven person. And I thought about graphic design because I draw and stuff like that. I don't know. I was just exploring things. One of the things I knew I'd always wanted to do was have a podcast. And it's interesting that Honey and I have become such close friends, because what really ultimately inspired me to do all of this next to George Amiro was actually Joe Bob. I knew I wanted to do a podcast, and I grew up in the 90s. I'm a 90s kid. I was born in the 80s, grew up in the 90s. And I watched Monstervision in the 90s growing up. And just like Joe Bob says, I was too young to be watching it, but I'm that core audience. We were way too young to be watching it. So it still strikes me as strange sometimes that I'm friends with her, and I was watching her on TV in the 90s as a kid. But I knew I wanted to start a podcast, and I had completely forgotten about Monstervision. And then I somehow the YouTube algorithm just decided to reach out and touch me, and it threw out a Monstervision clip, and I just dove right in because I've been in this like nostalgia thing for a couple of years. So I started watching all these Monstervision clips, and then I found out John. When I say John Bloom is Joe Bob Briggs. I found out that Joe Bob is on Cameo, So I paid $2.95 and I sent him a message and just kind of had a couple back and forths with him. And I found myself wanting to learn about who he was as a person and not so much about his career. And it dawned on me at like on a Friday afternoon, sitting at my desk working, that's my podcast. Why don't I interview actors, authors, and directors in horror? But instead of focusing on their careers, I also talk about who they are as people. And so I reached out to Bryan on Twitter, and I said, "Hey man, can you PM me? I want to bounce something off you." So he reached out to me, and he loved the idea, and he actually connected me with my friend Matt Wildawson, who actually hosts the Grindcast podcast. And he and I just became really good friends through all of this, and he helped me start a podcast. And so I just started reaching out to all of my favorite actors. I mean, and it's been such a wild thing, but Honey was the first, like one of the first people I reached out to. And it was funny. It was like a Wednesday morning at about 9 a.m. and I was scared to death. I'm a very charismatic guy. I talk to strangers, but for whatever reason, I was scared to death to call her. And the phone's ringing. I'm just sitting there thinking to myself, okay, I just got to get past the receptionist. I just got to get past the receptionist. It's just got to get, it's like, if I can just talk to her, I know I can get her on the podcast. So I hear this voice answer the phone. And I thought it's the receptionist. So I introduced myself, I said what I was doing, and she goes, "Oh, this is Honey." And I'm like, okay, crap. So I started talking to her, and that was it. I mean, and that began our relationship. And the funny thing is, it took like a year and a half for us to finally do the episode.
Well, yeah, because we decided to kind of wait, because then you and I were talking about maybe doing a podcast together, and then we were doing all the other podcasts that everyone else was asking us to do. And so we kind of just like kept pushing it aside, never did really do it. So,
and then the one day we did do it, we did like three different podcasts in the same day or something.
Was it? Oh my gosh, that was a long day.
I think we did 2 shows in the morning, and then we did ours.
It was a long day.
At the end of the interview, you were just like, you had spaced out.
Oh, yeah. I was like half asleep. I was just like, oh, I can't just see what Bryan.
But yeah, so Honey has literally been with me since the beginning of my journey. And in the midst of all that, talking to these directors, I realized I wanted to become a filmmaker. And what really sealed the deal for me was this monologue that John did on the last drive-in. It's called Keep Rolling. It's like 5 minutes and 47 seconds long. Mm-hmm. And man, if you even think about becoming a filmmaker or screenwriter and you watch that and that doesn't light a fire under you, nothing will. Like I just, at that moment, I changed my thing from like aspiring filmmaker to filmmaker, and I just started chasing it. And I got involved with my local film community, and I had this like 9-page script it started out with. And I got my friends involved first, and then actors started getting involved. And it was weird. I mean, like, it's been this just learning journey as it goes.
Yeah, you kept saying things to me like, should I do this? Should I do it? I was like, oh, shut up. Quit talking about it and just go do it.
Yeah. And so I actually, the funny thing is, I have 3 days of production on a film that basically no one will get to see. I'm trying to think of something to do with it. Like, if we do a DVD release, I might put it out there as a special feature. But what ended up happening, and I'm grateful to all my friends, but they're not professional actors. And we just had really serious scheduling conflicts, and it became extremely difficult to make the movie. And I hit this wall, and I'm thinking, like, I don't know what to do. I'm never going to get to finish this movie because I just can't get everybody together at the same time, or they can't do the hours we need. So I got to thinking, and one of the lessons I've learned as a filmmaker is, you need to be able to adapt quickly and efficiently. And I had been kicking around the idea in my head of a different vampire story that involved a Vice documentary crew following a vampire on his last week on Earth, essentially. And I bounced it off Corey Davison, who plays Cassius in the film, and he really liked it. And so I was going to do it as like a sequel to the movie. But then it just dawned on me one day, I'm like, wait a minute. If I go this route, I can literally shoot this film like the 5 people I need consistently. They're all professional actors. I can have them whenever I need them. They will be there. Everybody else, I just need them one at a time. And I'm like, this will solve my production issues if I just switch over and do this other movie. And it was hard because this went from like a 9-page script to a 23-page script, I think it was. And I had 3 days of production. So I was faced with this really, really tough situation. I just didn't know what to do. And I got to talking to one of my friends, and He said, Bryan, the only time I ever hear you excited about this film anymore is when you're talking about this other idea. And then it clicked for me. It's like, this is the decision to make. So one of my partners in my company, Scott, I talked to him and I had to convince him. I need to get him on board because he was vested in this story. And I pleaded my case with him. He didn't like it at first, but then it clicked for him and he realized. So then we just got to work, man. We started writing a new script. Myself, Lucas Dunn, Jordan Fraley, Corey Davis, and myself, we just started writing, and now we have a feature-length film. I have some really, really, gosh, I wish I could tell you. One person I can confirm it's going to be in the film is Charles D. Clarke from Empire. But there is one person who is a horror legend. I mean, legend. Has been doing this for 50 years, who has agreed to be in the film. I can't announce it yet, but I can't wait. I cannot believe that I'm actually going to get to work with this person. But what's even more amazing, though, let me backtrack a little bit. So one day, honey, I can't remember. Why was it I called you that day? I can't remember what it was.
I
But
don't
for
know.
whatever reason, we
That's what I remember.
no, I remember what it was. So that morning, you sent me a meme. It was just a funny meme, and I remember you had mentioned something about needing to go to Kentucky or something, and you thought it'd be kind of cool to visit the set. And I thought,
I think I was talking about Hannah and I were planning a trip for vacation, and we were going to maybe go to Kentucky, but I mean maybe go to Tennessee, but we're thinking more like going to Kentucky. And then you said you were going to be shooting or something, and I said, well, I'll talk to my daughter and see what we're doing. Who knows? It's not that much further. We might come there for a couple of days too. I think was kind of how that went.
yeah, because you had asked me, you're like, remind me where you're at, and so I told you, and so I'm driving to a doctor's appointment, and I call another one of my partners, and I told her, I was like, honey's talking about coming down here to visit and see the set. I said, if she's going to do that, we should just put her in the movie. And she loved the idea. And I couldn't get a hold of the other one. I'm like, you know what? It doesn't matter. I'm doing this. He can, if you don't like it, whatever, but there's no way he wouldn't. So I called her back and I bounced this idea off of her and she liked it. And we put some on the books. So I'm just like, holy crap. Honey Gregory's going to be in my first film. Like, how is this even real? And man, the week of shooting was in June. That was probably one of the scariest weeks of my life because I was convinced that something was going to happen that was going to keep this from happening because I just couldn't wrap my head around the fact that I'm about to have her in my film. And actually, the funny thing is, I actually had a COVID exposure at one point, and thankfully,
I remember because you said this might not happen.
Yes, I tested 4 times just to make sure, and I was negative each time. I'm like, all right, she's coming, we're doing this, and so like that, I took that day off that she was coming into town, and that was an interesting day in of itself. It feels like that was the hottest day of that summer, and I mean it was like 90 something degrees, and I had Corey in those like long sleeve sweatsuit, and I felt bad about that. But the funniest thing about that day was going to buy your outfits because I need to do a costume for it, and I know nothing about buying women's clothing. I was completely lost, and she sent me some sizes, and that should have been good enough. But I'm standing there at this clothes rack, and just there's something lost in translation between seeing the sizes and just trying to find something. So I call her. And she like walks me through like buying clothes for a woman. And I'm like, okay, I think I got it. And then she gets on the phone with me and I'm still completely lost. And you thought it was funny, which was appropriate.
Well, it was hilarious because we were actually driving and I was tired, and I'm driving, and then you call and you're like at the store, like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I'm like going, oh no, this is not good because I wasn't there like to try anything on. So I'm like, oh boy. And so I've got you on speakerphone, and we're like, my daughter and I are like giggling and everything. It was pretty funny hearing that a man trying to buy a woman he's never met clothes. It was just hysterical. You were just in panic mode. Like, oh my God, I gotta get this right. And
I'm actually very good at buying women's clothes because I buy women's clothes all the time. And then my wife would be like, that's a woman's shirt while I'm wearing it. So I'm very good at buying women's clothes by accident.
Hey, it's so but even that wasn't good enough. I still, for whatever reason, just felt, I think it was just because I was just so nervous about this whole thing. So there was this random old lady in the aisle, and I just went up to her. I'm like, ma'am, can you please help me? I'm so lost right now. So I spent like $100 something I bought like what, 8 outfits or something. No, maybe it was 4. I bought
No, it
2
was like 3 or
outfits.
4. It was
Yeah,
3 or
2
4,
outfits
I
of each
think. It was
size.
like 3 or 4 shirts and a couple pairs of pants, some jeans and a white pair of
Yes,
jeans or something. 3 or
yes,
4
yes,
shirts and a couple pairs of pants, I think.
yes, exactly. And I'm glad we did. And then then it was even funnier because so we meet for dinner, and that was interesting because it was like we had known each other for 20 years.
Yeah.
It was so
Well, we had the
strange.
same birthday, so we like connect. I mean, it was like connection, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it really was. Like, I mean, I walk in there and there she is. I was sitting down talking. I mean, it was literally like we had known each other for
Yeah,
20
two
years.
outgoing Libras just colliding, you know. It was crazy.
What's the birthday?
October 4th.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. So and so we had a really cool dinner and we drove the set, and then we get to set, and she's like, okay, so how do you want me dressed? And I'm just like, whichever of these you like. And she's like, well, no, but like, which one? I mean, do you want me to go sexy look? Do you want me to go at home look? Like, and then I couldn't decide what she
Well, I
wanted
kept
to wear.
asking you, what does the character wear? I mean, who is this character? What does she wear? What would she be wearing at home, you know, to do these domestic things that I was going to be doing? And you're like,
Which
no,
wouldn't make
no,
sense.
just wear what you like, wear what's comfortable. I was like, but what? It's not about me. It's about the character. What would the character wear? And I'm
Which
coming
is
at it from
true.
an actress's point of view, and you're coming about it from like, oh my God, Honey Gregory's here, and I want her to be comfortable.
Yeah, that was my chief concern because she actually gets attacked. Like the things in my mind, like I want her to be comfortable. I want her to feel safe. But she's going to be attacked at one point in this scene. So I'm worried about that scene. So I had all these things going in my head. I'm just like, whatever's comfortable. So she ended up settling on like this gray shirt and jeans. It was perfect. And actually, I think the other outfits wouldn't have made sense. A person wouldn't be doing dishes in these outfits.
Some people would, so it depends on the character.
I guess it's true, but it fit really well. And then for whatever, I was talking to my mom that day, and she convinced me to buy these dish gloves. So it's almost kind of humorous because you have these really frilly dish gloves.
Oh, the pink, yeah, they were pink, plastic. What do you call it? Rubbery dish glove, yeah, gloves.
Yeah. So it was and everything went great. I mean, we shot for about 4
Except
hours.
for the malfunction with the gloves, that was hilarious.
That was funny. But
I laughed so hard, almost peed my pants.
And it was awesome. It will always be probably my top filmmaking memory, getting to direct her, because it just was so, and it was so touching. Like she comes in and she just lights up the room. She's friends with everybody. Everybody loves her. But earlier in the day, she had actually texted me that she was anxious. And that meant a lot to me because that told me that she actually really cared about what she was doing. She wasn't just doing this as a thing. She actually really cared.
Well,
and she's always been such
wouldn't care, but I would hope that each actress would care.
But she's always, even from our first conversation, she's always been such an encouragement to me. She's always told me she's proud of me and encouraged me to pursue this. And I just can't speak highly enough of her as a person and as an actress. I mean, it was, and she was, and like any artist, she's really hard on herself. I mean, she gave this really stellar performance. I have some footage that I've shown to a few people, and she has no dialogue the entire time. But to me, the sign of a good actor is being able to give a solid performance without dialogue. You can really sell a part without speaking a word, like you're solid. And that's what she did. She started improvising. Like at one point, the script just says close the door. Well, it made sense to be kind of pissed off at where we're at in this part of the script. She actually like slams the door. She just improvs that. She's like, is that okay? I'm like, yeah, it's perfect. It's great.
Which is funny because you were like, oh, this is great. And I'm thinking, man, I feel like I'm like Carrie, like I'm way overacting, I'm thinking this is like way too much. And he's thinking, no, it's great. Give me more. And I'm like going, this is too much.
Yeah, it really wasn't. It was fantastic. And so like I said, we shot for about 4 hours and everything turned out great. And she's actually at the very beginning of the film. And the cool thing is we were able to tweak the story so that her part, we're still able to maintain her part in the film. And I actually want to make her a bigger part of the sequel that we're probably going to do at some point. So, and it's just been such a wild, I didn't expect a year later to still be making this film, but I mean, I think it's also a testament to what filmmaking's like, especially independent filmmaking. I mean, I still work a full-time job. Most of my other guys still work full-time jobs. I mean, we just shoot when we can. We're shooting on Saturdays a lot of the time. And we just had to completely start over. But what's amazing is we're coming out of the gate with a feature, and we have a budget in mind. We're going to run an Indiegogo campaign. I have some really, really cool honey swag that I'm going to put on the Indiegogo. So you guys are kind of knowing about it first. Like the shirt she wore in the film, it's like covered in blood. That's up, as a perk. A bunch of signed 8x10s. The gloves, I have the gloves up as well. So we have some really cool stuff. Honey's been really a major contributor and help on this movie. And I mean, a lot, it's happening in large part to her as well. Just her encouragement and her part in it. And so she's amazing. And I will keep talking if you don't shut me up. And she has far more interesting stories than I do.
Bryan is a great guy, and he's a lot of fun, and he talks more than any man I've ever met in my life. So it's nice to have a friend who likes to talk as much as I do. In fact, I think maybe more. Maybe more. But he's a bright young man with dreams, and I want to see that. I'm a mom, so a lot of mom and energy in me. So I just felt like I wish someone would have helped me out when I was that age, and so I could just see in him this desire, this passion to be more than what he was. And if there was something I could do, then I wanted to help and contribute. I'm far away. There's not a whole lot I can do, but it just worked out that we were going to be halfway to where he was anyway. And I had just been on the last drive-in, and I was there thinking, I really miss this, and I had kind of been putting the energy out there. I want to do more. I want to get back in the game. I just don't know what I want to do. And then Bryan was talking about this movie. I'm like, man, just do it. Quit talking about it, and go for it. And then next thing I know, I'm in it, It's just like, okay. You just kind of go with it, whatever the universe is bringing you. So be grateful. But I had a great time. Everybody was super nice. They treated me extremely well. Everybody was kind. I still have contact with them on Facebook, and they're just all a very sweet group of guys and girls, and I can't wait to come back and hang out with you guys some more and do it again. And if you know anybody wants, I'm game for trying some new things. I keep telling Bryan, I want to play the killer.
We'll have to do something like that. We definitely will. And the funny thing is, you've been back for a second thing that we did.
Well, yes, and that is, well, okay. So I'll go ahead and say it. My daughter wanted to do, she loves those ghost hunting shows, and so she wanted to do it. And so I'm like, okay, here we go. So another person trying to help, fulfill their dreams. And we went all the way to Knoxville, almost Knoxville, just outside Knoxville. And Bryan and his friends dedicated their time and volunteered to be our crew, which we were very grateful for. And we went out to a graveyard one night. I think it was Friday night. And then Saturday night, Bryan had some great connections, some people who own the old spooky building. Was it Clinton? It was in Clinton.
Yeah.
And so his awesome, hardworking contacts got us a couple of places. And the first night was fun. Nothing really spooky,
Oh, that's not true. That's not true.
Not like the second night. The second night about scared everybody's pants off.
Yeah.
Because there was some demons up there in that attic, and there was no doubt about it. It was weird. It was real. It was the real deal.
Yeah. It started calling out people individually.
It was calling people out by name.
Yeah. It was mean to my girlfriend.
Yeah. It called Julia CUNT.
Yeah.
It literally said,
yikes.
The demon literally said, Julie is and then said the word. And we're all like, oh, wow, that's not nice. But they identified themselves as 12 angry men and Legion. They referred to themselves as Legion. So every time we'd ask them who they are, if they were on the left or the right, they wouldn't answer. Oh, one guy did. He said he was on the right, but the others wouldn't answer. They just said they were Legion.
Well, then when we talked to Sherry, the names they were using were real people that had lived up there. Like the place used to be a brothel or something.
Yeah.
And they were using the names of people that had long been dead.
It had been a speakeasy, a brothel, and other some sort of house where you like a boarding house or something. So there was a lot of really creepy energy there. And and pretty much every room we went, one room was pretty dead, but most rooms where we went, there was a lot going on. And so even Bryan started getting a little spooked. He was like,
Yeah.
oh my God, these are demons. We need to move on. We need to move on.
It started talking about like podcasting and stuff, and I'm sitting there holding the camera, and I'm like, it's talking about me right now, and I'm just like,
I was talking about a guitarist and
yeah,
just different
yeah,
little things that kind of connected to you. And you're like, wait a minute, I think they're talking about me.
yeah, yeah.
And then I think Jordan I said, all right, I got mad at the demons, right? So I'm telling him where to go. And I said, okay, shut off what we were using, that app. And
Yeah.
so we shut the app off and we go in another room, a couple different rooms. Well, then when Jordan turned his back on, instantly, Jordan and I are standing there together, and Jordan goes, I'm going to turn it back on. I was like, oh, here we go again, So he turns it back on, and instantly it says, she's a bitch.
Oh no!
Wow.
Next to me. Oh yeah, they were not nice. They were very not nice guys. And the weird thing is, I think one of them may have followed me home because I kept having really weird things happen to me afterwards, including
Uh-oh.
a car wreck. And then a couple days ago, Hannah and I came home. She went to school. I went to work, picked her up, came home, and this impossible situation had happened in my living room. I have a thing where you put knickknacks in, like old ladies like myself have, and it had 3 or 4 glass shelves, and each shelf has like this peg that goes into the sides, and it's got like a slit, and the glass fits in it. And then on the other end, the back side, are just these regular pegs that it just sits on, and you kind of can fold them up and down, Somehow, this is no kidding. Now, it's been there for 20 years. It had come crashing down and broke the things underneath. But it was still, the glass shelf was still in the peg, so it was like a lever. But the other 2 pegs in the back had been flipped over and still in the sides.
I haven't heard this
And
story.
I had a hard time. I had to take the whole thing apart to get it back into place. So it's as if the glass passed through the pegs and came crashing down, because the pegs are there. There's no way for it to move or go over or around or anything.
Wow.
So we're like, how did this happen?
That's why I don't go messing with demons.
And,
Right.
and that now my daughter's like, I don't think that's what I want to do. So we've got enough footage to do maybe 3 or 4 episodes, and Bryan is going to help me, because now my daughter's like, I ain't touching it. She's like spooked out. She's like, I'm not touching it.
Well, that sounds more interesting than any of the ghost hunters. I mean, I wasted 6 seasons on ghost hunters and didn't see anything that interesting.
It's real.
Well, it was, I have a natural draw somehow. They come to me anyway, but we were in that one room, remember, Bryan? And there was that weird mirror, and it kept telling us, look up.
Mm-hmm.
And then we kept looking, it was just a ceiling. And then we walked out into the hallway, and there was this giant hole in the ceiling. And so we just stopped. And as soon as we stopped there, oh my gosh, it got spooky.
Yeah,
It just got spooky.
that one area was like the hot spot.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, though, I think if something indeed did follow you home, I don't think it was the second day. I think it was that first graveyard. Because if you'll remember, we had those little motion toy sensors, and they kept going off. And then we were at this to me, the creepiest thing above it all was we were at this one grave, and Hannah's like crouched down and looking at something, and Honey's got this app open. And we use 2 different apps. One of them's called Ghost Tube Vox, and that's the one where they talk. And then there's another one where it like displays words. Mm-hmm. And at one point it displays a name, and I think it was like Isaiah or something. I can't remember what the name was. And Hannah's like, oh my gosh. And we're like, what? And it's like, look at the name on this grave. And it was the name.
And it's the same name standing right over it.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then start talking about heart attacks and like, or something like it was good, man. I'm telling you, dude, it's creepy. I
had a vision before we got there. Remember that night before we went to the cemetery, I had this weird vision. I was trying to go to sleep, and this weird vision, just like a movie plane, popped in my head. And it was this rotting, decaying leg with like maggots crawling out of it, just popped in like out of nowhere, this vision. And I'm thinking, oh, that's weird. So I kept trying to figure out, but there was a lot of like veterans in that graveyard.
Mhm.
So it kind of had that vibe, like someone who's, I don't know.
It's
Have you
old.
had visions like that all your life, honey?
Uh-huh. Yeah. And they do spook me out sometimes. Yeah, I get weird stuff happen to me all the time. So I'm a Christian, so I know that a lot of horror fans are not, but I believe in the good and the evil.
Sure.
So if
Well,
one
that could
exists,
be
the
one
other
of your
exists.
spiritual giftings, though. A lot of people are more
Yep.
sensitive to the spiritual realm than others.
Yeah, but some bad folks were trying to
Well,
contact us that day.
well, I believe I'd be getting some sage and burning it and doing some spirit
exactly
cleansing in my house.
Hannah told me when we got back, she goes, "Mommy, I wanted you to sage the house, but I haven't done it yet." But after day before yesterday, when there's no way I had to take those pegs out. I had to take all 4 pegs out and take the glass shelf out in order to get it back in the way it's supposed to be. There's no way. I can't fathom in my mind how in this world it could have done it. It's
It'd
just,
be
I don't
interesting
know.
to put cameras up in the house and just for several days and just watch, like when you guys aren't there, watch what happens.
Well, Hannah and I were at the dollar store once, and this has been quite a while ago. She was a lot younger, middle school maybe. And she was like, "Mommy, I want to try a new shampoo." And she'd like to change flavors of shampoo about every other week. So I'm like, I'm not spending $40 on a bottle of shampoo. We'll just go, we go to Walmart or dollar store or something. And we were standing there looking at, just, standing there looking at the shelf at the shampoos. And I'm like, "Honey, which kind you want?" And I'm like, "This one does that, and this one does that, and what have you." And all of a sudden, a bottle of shampoo flies off the shelf, or conditioner, whichever it was, flies off the shelf and lands at our feet.
Hmm.
And I go, "Okay." I look at her around, and I'm like, "What the heck just happened here?"
Must be the
Buy
ghost
this
of a
one.
hairdresser.
My daughter's like, "I don't want that one." It's like, I don't think we're going to buy that one. But
That's
weird.
wild. The only ghost encounter I really like, my grandmother's house was creepy. I think most people's grandmother's house was creepy. Like, you turned the lights off and then you ran down the hallway to get to wherever you were going.
Exactly.
But when I first got my apartment when I was in my 20s, I got this 1-bedroom apartment, and I would wake up, like I would take naps and just, sleeping in general. I would wake up to what I thought was a scream.
Ooh.
Like, I would just hear a girl screaming, and I would shoot
Ooh.
up. And there were times that my dog seemed like she was staring,
Oh,
at a specific part, and I was kind of freaked out.
yeah.
So I went on a date with a girl, one date, because she's kind of crazy. But on the way from her house to mine, which was about 30 minutes, she told me that Rob and Sherry Zombie wanted to have a threesome with her. So that was one strike. I think the first words out of her mouth was she was so high. That was another strike. Never been to my house. We never had conversations about this stuff. I pull up to my apartment complex, and there's like 10 to 12 apartments right there. She doesn't know which one's mine. But before she gets out of the car, she points at mine. It's like someone died in that apartment.
Oh no.
And I was like, oh shit. Like,
No.
she's obviously crazy. She's high. But what if she does have that gift? I moved shortly after. But she described as a girl killed herself in my bathroom. And that's
Oh.
typically where my dog would stare. And it was a female scream that I heard quite often. So that's really my only experience I've ever had.
And when did you move? Like the next day?
If it was that easy, I would have, yeah.
I've seen a shadow person once with glowing red eyes.
I've seen a shadow person, but no glowing red eyes. What happened?
Well, it was kind of like it was in so it was in South Carolina where I grew up, and the bedroom where I was a kid. I think I was a teenager at the time. And there was just a lot going on in life at the time. It was kind of like a heavy, hard season, feeling kind of oppressed, And I just went to bed. I wasn't asleep, and I could move, so it wasn't sleep paralysis. And I had a couch that was about 3 feet away from my bed, and I just saw the distinct outline of this dark figure with like glowing red eyes, and
Oh,
I could see like shiny like white teeth, just with this evil smile, and he was laughing at me audibly. And
oh,
I could not do anything. I just put the covers over my head and was just
It's funny how
frozen
we
in
think
fear.
yeah.
Yikes.
cover yourself up. He's going to come
Yeah,
by you.
yeah,
Well, when I was a kid, I remember always, when you're a kid, you always think there's monsters under your bed, right? But do remember, and I'd always, you sleep with your covers way up, right? And I do remember one time being brave enough to look under the bed, and I saw glowing red eyes. And I told my mom, of course, she thought it was crazy, but I know
yeah,
there was something under that bed.
yeah.
Um, but that house that we were living in at the time had been owned by a husband and wife who raised their children, and then they both had died and left the house to like one of their children who was renting it out, and we were living in it. So I don't know if they died there or if that was some sort of connection, but there was something under my bed.
Mhm.
I had a weird story it wasn't really a haunted story. It was kind of funny. My wife and we rented like a kind of an apartment duplex for a while. And every morning we would hear these blood curdling screams. It was kind of like you're in like a Hitchcock movie, right? You hear like a scream and you're like, what is that? It's like a loud woman screaming, and happened for like a month. And then finally one day we're walking outside and we see our neighbor, and he goes, my bird's not waking you up, is he?
Oh,
It was like a parrot or something. And we went inside and he showed us the parrot could like mimic a scream.
oh
And
wow.
that parrot was waking up. It's so kind of a odd one, but
Well, at least you found out and you didn't spend the rest of your life thinking something creepy was going on.
right,
Right.
exactly.
I mean, so honey, I mean, one of these stories, but I don't ever talk about this stuff, but like my family has kind of there have been people in my family that have sort of this, connection to the spirit world, I guess. My great grandmother was one of those people, and my grandmother tells me a story that one day they were driving to the train station, and my great grandmother kept seeing like this dark figure on the hood of the car, and she finally told my great grandfather, like, stop and go home, just forget the trip, just turn around, stop, go home. So he listened to her for whatever reason, and no joke, that train they were going to get on crashed and killed a bunch of people.
Oh
uh,
wow.
my mom, when my great grandmother died, she died in '84. I was less than a year away from meeting my great grandmother. But when she died, my mom actually woke up and there was like this mist in her room. And she said she knew at that point that her great grandmother, that her grandmother had died. And then the phone rang to tell her that she had passed. There's another story where, when my grandmother was a kid, they had like a car wreck or something, and my grandma, and I mean in the 1940s, you didn't have back seats or you didn't have seat belts in the back seat. Yeah, so she goes flying, and my great grandmother literally catches her by her ponytail, and stops her from getting injured. I mean, so just weird stuff. So I've always, I too am a Christian, but I've always kind of I feel like I can feel spirits sometimes. I remember one time I went to I was hanging out with one of my cousins, and we went to this old veteran cemetery at night, and we're walking around. It's real spooky. And I remember I took a picture of her next to a grave, and then she's like, "Well, you get in front of it, and let me take a picture of you with it." So I'm standing there, and I'm like, "There's gonna be something in this picture." I just had a feeling. I just feel. I'm like, "There's gonna be something in this picture." And lo and behold, man, I mean, it could have been dust. Could have been dust. I don't know, but there were orbs everywhere in this photo at this point. And
Oh
I'm not
wow.
joking when I say this. One of them, you zoomed up on it, and it looked like there was a face in it.
Yep.
Mm.
Wow.
When I was in college, I was a security guard, and I used to work for one of my posts was the gas company in Nashville, and I don't know why, but in particular in the IT room, there was this one spot in the IT room that I'd walk into it and you'd feel lightheaded, and like it just felt off, like something was weird about this one spot in this room. So I don't know. I've had weird stuff. I've woken up in the middle of the night and just felt like something was in the room. but I've never outright had like things move or anything like that. Thankfully, I don't know if I do too well with it, to be honest.
Well, I think I told you about the one before we came down there, where it was, I don't know, 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. I was dead asleep because I'd taken melatonin and whatever that night. I was like, I'm sleeping, I'm getting a good night's sleep tonight. I'm gonna be out. And something came into my room and I thought it was my daughter. So of course, I'm like kind of half awake, half asleep, and I go, what do you want, honey? No answer. And I said this like multiple times, like, what do you want? What's the problem? And I was like, oh my gosh, she like sleepwalking or what? Because I could see something, and I could sense it and feel it. And so finally I'm like, oh, she's not gonna answer me. It means I gotta really wake up, So I'm like trying to wake up and I'm opening my eyes and I'm looking and I see the shadow of a human. And I'm like, what do you want? No, she won't answer me. And then I kept looking, and all of a sudden it like tried to like reach towards my bed. And I'm thinking, what are you doing? And all of a sudden it just kind of turned grainy and kind of dissipated and went away. And I
Wow.
thought, and so I'm like, oh God, all right, some of those spooky people or whatever trying to wake me up. I'm thinking about it. I'm like, in Jesus' name, I'm going back to sleep. I think, oh, in Jesus' name, I'm fine. And I'm back to sleep. And so the next morning, I dropped my daughter off at school, and I'm on my way to my office. I get a text message from a former client who's kind of become kind of a friend. She's very spiritual. And she says, oh my God, I need you. I need, my daughter saw this gray shadow person. And I was like, what? So I call her up, whatever. And it turned out that she was combing her daughter's hair, and she's a beautician, a hairstylist. And so she has a mirror in front and a mirror in the back. And her daughter's like looking in the mirror, and all of a sudden they see a shadow person go past them. And it knocks over their figurine of the Virgin Mary. And so then later that night, her daughter saw something else. I think the same thing. And then in the middle of the night, she woke up screaming in the middle of the night, having really bad nightmares, saying that there was a monster under bed with red eyes and gnashing teeth that was trying to attack her and her baby brother. And she was in a panic mode. So I'm thinking, okay, well, I just said, well, you need to get some sage, get a priest or, someone to come over and do that. She's like, do you know anybody? I'm like, no. She's like, well, neither do I. And I'm like, oh, So I didn't have any appointments the rest of the afternoon. And so I said, well, I got to do this and this, and then I can come over, later. And so I went and got some sage, and I went over. I had my cross, I had my sage, I got all my stuff, and we go through the whole house, and I've got my little app on, the same one I used when Bryan and I went ghost hunting, and all kinds of stuff came up that was very relevant, right? All these words, I can't remember them all, but it turned out there was like this one area of the house that was the most active, and it turned out that there was an old cellar under there. It's this old farmhouse that they had fixed up, and at one point it kept saying things, like get like salvation and harm and teeth and biting, and it was like trying to tell us, I think, kind of the same thing as the child experienced maybe. And then at one point it said something, and I can't remember the words now. I wish I'd written them down, but something about an alley and monster or something like to that effect. And so I go, do you have an alley? And she goes, well, we call this part of here the alley. So she walks over to kind of point out the window, and there's this guy walking up. And normally she's home alone with her kids, and she's got like 5 kids. And her husband was gone. And I was like, she goes, there's somebody coming down the alley. So I walk out with her. So she goes out on the porch, and I walk out the sliding door with her. And the guy, as soon as the guy sees me, he starts backing up and goes, I'm fine. I don't need anything. I'll find, And he starts backing up and leaving. And I'm thinking, that's really weird that I just happen to be here with this guy. And now he's flipping out with my presence, But we just went through the whole house and blessed it, but it kept telling us things, And I think the shadow person her daughter saw was the same one that came and woke me up in the same night.
Oh wow.
Because the descriptions were identical, what she saw and what I saw. And that day she had been on the phone with some priests because she wanted to get baptized. She had been married to a guy who was a high priest, or what do they call him, in satanic religion, and she had divorced him, and they had stuff going on, with that divorce. And she said it wasn't the first time that they had seen demons in there. And I said, well, who sent them to you, So she was trying to get baptized. And so she wound up getting the whole family baptized and everything. And now they haven't had these problems. But we had to go through the whole house and sage it and bless it. And it was really spooky.
Wow. I think you have a potential hit TV show here if you wanted to go around helping people.
Well,
with sounds like you have some psychic abilities.
I wouldn't mind personally doing it. In fact, I was, I said, okay, to my daughter, fine, if you want to do that, we'll do it. But I don't know. I'd probably have to do a little more research and talk to the professionals first to make sure I'm doing it right. Because, like I said, I think I brought something home with me. There's been some weird things happen.
I don't blame the ghost for following you home.
Oh,
but also, I just looked it up. You can get 3 sage sticks for $6.49 on Amazon. So.
That's right. I've got a whole bushel in there. I've got some. Yeah,
that's really the real fear. I mean, like it's not the encountering that worries me. It's it following you home. I mean, that really does.
Right.
Happen.
Well, because both the times I went in 2 cons last year, to the Jamboree and to the one in Memphis. No, that was the Jamboree. Jamboree was Memphis, and the one in Texas, Preserve Halloween. And both of them, when I got in the car, so the first one down to the Jamboree, the day I got in the car, we got all loaded up and we got in the car, and I'm not half a mile or 2 down the road when I saw a big yellow pentagram, upside down pentagram on the street right in front of me, like the vision of it. Of course, I start praying or whatever. And on the way to Memphis, several people tried to run me off the road or hit me or whatever. I mean, it was like constantly. And finally, the day I was leaving, I backed into a light pole, and instantly I felt that energy release. And then when I was going to Texas, the morning that we were leaving, I was taking Hannah to school, and I was going to pack up, go home, pack it up, and then pick her up on the way, because it's on the way out of town. And before we could even get to the school, this insane guy in this black car, all tinted black, went into major road rage and caused me to have a bad wreck.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then I wound up thinking, well, I'm not going to get to go to the con. Well, Greg and Allison over there are amazing people, and they got me on a plane like instantly and got us there. But some entity has been trying to keep me from going to the conventions, which I find very interesting. Yeah. But let's hope and pray that we don't have any incidences when I go the one in June. So I'm going to, what's it, the FrankenCon or the Bride of FrankenCon?
Yeah, FrankenCon.
Bride of FrankenCon, I think I'm supposed to be at. So
John, I'm excited.
nothing happens. Somebody doesn't want me there.
Shame on them.
We have some stuff we need to film while you're down here. We got to make sure we.
We'll talk about that.
Yeah. It's funny. Is this is when you came on that interview I did with John Brennan, we ended up spending like a significant amount of time talking about ghost hunting.
Everybody loves ghost hunting. It's fun. Movies are good, but ghost hunting's fun too.
Yeah, it's like maybe we're in the wrong business. Maybe movies aren't where we need to be. We need to do like ghost hunting TV shows.
Well, that's the real stuff, right?
Yeah,
Right.
it is. Heck yeah.
This
stories.
this original graveyard we filmed in. Let me see if I can find something that show. I mean, this place. So the first cemetery we went into the night that I was with Honey and Hannah. that one's older and it's creepy. I mean, it's creepy, but it's not as creepy. But there's this place down the street, that one we didn't go to, and it's a more modern cemetery. But I just get this weird vibe from it that it's probably like 15 times more haunted than that old one. And it's really weird because it's like it's kind of, you can see the road, but it's kind of dipped in. So like when you're in it, you feel secluded. And there's a single solitary light in this cemetery, and it just casts a cone of light in this one area, and it's just dark all around it. And there's this big field behind it, and then a wood line. And so I spent a significant amount of time doing like principal photography and stuff out in this place, and it's just creepy, man. It's just really creepy. And if we were going to do a second episode in Knoxville, I want to go out there for a couple nights.
Well, we'll see. We'll be there, so we'll see if I can convince Hannah to do it again. I may have to put like a garlic around her and like 5 giant crosses or something. I don't know. See if she'll go.
Well, I'll share with you guys, like, so the original idea for Honey's part, what I pitched to her originally, what she agreed to, was actually going to be to chase her, because that cemetery was significant in the original script. I was actually going to do like a POV thing, chasing her down the street, and then her cut into that cemetery, which, that's a classic film trope. Like, you're getting chased by a killer. Let's go to the cemetery. There's a house right across the street. Let's go to the cemetery. That makes a lot of sense. So I'm actually glad we didn't go with this idea. But and then it was going to be like this, like POV, like killing her thing. But what we ended up getting in the film was just way, way better. I mean, it
was a lot of fun.
It was. That's one of the coolest things about doing films, is just the set environment. When you're on a good, healthy set where everybody gets along and everybody's having fun. I mean, we like the one scene where Corey gets up and we do that pan shot with him. I'd say it's terrible, but to me, the funniest thing, well, that when I was dragging you, that was funny too. But the best take I got on one scene I couldn't use, because Corey stands up, I'm following him, and I don't have a fluid head tripod as I'm doing this. So I'm having to be like really careful as I'm doing this. So Corey gets up, I'm following him. It's just a beautiful pan, the best I've ever gotten. Everybody's right there in the scene.
Because everybody's watching offset, but all of a sudden he turned the camera offset, and there everybody was.
Well, no, but like I had to establish that shot, because you have to establish that motion, because basically we cut where the table was, and then we move the camera and pick up the shot with with him walking out. Well, I mean, everybody was sitting there at the table, and that was the best take we had, unfortunately, and we got a good one. But it sucked. But I laughed. I like stopped the camera and I just looked up and I'm like, you guys are in the shot, and we all started laughing. There was like a little outtake we did where like Hannah threw something at Corey, and it's like, leave my mom alone, and there was the one of me dragging you. And it was just a lot of fun.
The crazy part was trying to get all that fake blood out of my hair at midnight. I'm like in the shower at midnight going, oh my God, my hair was like stuck together.
I didn't feel good about that. I did not feel good about that.
So is Hannah your daughter, honey? Is she in the film too?
Daughter. She's not in the film, but she has her own camera, and she's taken photography and media and some different classes and everything. And so Bryan was kind enough to let her assist him so she could get some credits too for the film.
She did a good job.
That's
she ran
cool.
the clapboard and the lights, camera, action, all that stuff. She did a great job. It was the blood thing, man. That was the worst.
And it was like drying.
Yeah, it was homemade blood, Karo syrup, food coloring. I thought it was going to be funny, but then when I'm out there like slinging it on her, and I could feel how I didn't feel good about it at all. I really didn't. And to be honest, I'm actually worried that shirt's going to mold before we send it to anybody, because
I didn't think about that, but yeah.
But I kept the blood on. I want it to be authentic. So like it's this. I thankfully thought to myself, she needs to sign this shirt, and we're going to put it as a perk on the Indiegogo. And dadgummit, we couldn't get a marker that worked well. So like people are going to think it's faked. So if you're seeing
it's not fake, I did sign the shirt.
She did sign it, but it's horrible looking. But it is the screen worn shirt. It still has the blood on it, and it's got this really terrible honey signature on it. But that's what makes it special.
It wouldn't write, and it just wouldn't. Kept whatever. But didn't I sign the gloves too?
Yeah, you signed the gloves. You did that when you're here for the ghost hunting
for the birthday. Yeah.
Honey came over for lunch, and then I'm just sitting there I'm having her sign stuff while she's doing it.
So you
Well, I
mentioned
think
bringing her back in a sequel too, right? So does that mean she lives?
Oh,
Well, I mean,
maybe.
what is life? What is to be alive? There's the real question. Like, I have a friend who works for the CDC, and we were talking about viruses one day, and he told me something that blew my mind. So, do you guys know who Z.A. Recht is? He wrote the Plague series. It was these zombie films. He's passed away. But what really shocked me about his books, in the first one in the intro, it's talking about viruses and how like they're not alive and they're not intelligent, they're not sentient, but they know what they need to do to stay alive and to spread. And the most significant example it gave was the Ebola virus. Here's this virus that infects you, and like viruses don't want to kill you; they actually want to keep you alive so they can continue to spread. But it's like this is a virus that spreads through bodily fluids, and it has to get in through an orifice, right? But what does Ebola do? It causes you to bleed through every orifice of your body, and you convulse, which slings the fluid. And I thought, holy smokes.
Survival.
So I had lunch with his friend not long after reading that, and I was talking to him about it, and he's like, yeah, viruses are sort of on the fringe of the definitions of life because they're not dead, but they're not alive either. So like it's really, I don't know. But yeah, so like that's what I'll tell you, like, define life. We have some ideas. I probably do sort of a continuity thing, and
She could be a force ghost.
that's an idea. That's an idea. I wish I were friends with Lucas. I might could get away with that. Have her like bleed.
I do want to say I'm really glad you guys filmed in Knoxville. It's funny, Tennessee film history is kind of weird because it's like Jim Varney, Ernest P. Worrell was kind of the thing, and then once he's been gone, it's Tennessee kind of, and I think even Joe Bob spoke about this at his How Redneck Saved Hollywood. He's talked about how Nashville and Tennessee kind of should have been a big deal with 70s and 80s films, but I'm sure, especially you, Bryan, you've probably thought that too, just how it's kind of been underutilized more.
Yeah, well, it's ironic that I'm actually but I live in Knoxville now, but I'm actually from Nashville originally. It's but it's changing. Nashville, believe it or not, Nashville is not ever going to really be a film hub. That as strange as that sounds, that's the music capital, right? Knoxville is where film's taken off, and I didn't know that. It's sort of just, I don't know. I would say divine planning. I'll just call it divine planning that I'm here and I'm pursuing this. There's a really large film community here, and Knoxville's cool. They actually say that, my understanding is Knoxville and Ohio are going to be the next Atlantis, because the tax breaks you get. But Knoxville's cool. Tennessee in general is cool because you get free film permits. Like if I need to go film somewhere and I need a permit, I can go to the state, the state office, and they just give it to you for free.
Yeah, John and I just actually went to a film premiere and a Q&A at the Full Moon Cineplex in Hermitage that filmed in Knoxville.
Yeah, it's pretty, it's booming. There's a large film community. We actually only had one film festival for a long time, and Keith McDaniel's the guy that ran it. He actually just retired it. He's, oh goodness, he's been doing it for over a decade, and he's just ready to kind of retire and move on with life. So we actually have some other film festivals that are popping up. I've actually been considering getting involved in one of them myself, and being a
Very
film.
cool.
So it's Knoxville's booming. Like if you want to do film, I mean, we have some really cool locations, and there are a lot of good people. And that's also, if somebody ever asked me like, how can I get into film? You hear people complain about Facebook and social media. That has been one of the greatest tools I have had in my arsenal for networking is Facebook. There are so many actors, A-list, B-list, C-list, unknown. There are tons of actors on Facebook. In fact, the person that I can't announce right now that's going to be in my film, I connected with this person on Facebook through Messenger. So it's social media is what you make of it. And what I would tell people is if you want to get involved, if you have a smartphone, you have everything you need. Your movie's going to sound like crap. If you can get a couple $100 to get some sound equipment, you're gold. But if you can't, don't worry about it. Just do a lot of close-up shots. Do a found footage film. You can get Filmic Pro on your phone, and you can film in 4K. You can film, like I actually have an anamorphic lens for my iPhone. But you all you need is a smartphone. You can make a movie. It won't be the greatest thing, but you can become a filmmaker. And there are so many people out there who just want to be involved. And they work for free. Like if you say like, hey, I can put you on IMDb, done. They're there. They'll do whatever you want them to do. Like I mean, it's just been so like all you ever hear about are the negatives in Hollywood, all the sexual assault and all this other stuff going on. But let me tell you something. I have had a very positive experience in this industry so far. I have met more people that are willing to help and encourage and build you up and support you. It's been, I just would have never thought it. I mean, I've made some really genuine friends in all of this. I mean, it's been, I mean, people that I really like, I have love for them in my heart. I mean, I met Honey through this. She's become one of my best friends. It's just been really incredible how willing people are to help and work. And you don't have to have money. Like just feed them. If you can just feed them, if you can get a budget for food, you can make a film. I mean, it's just so accessible today. But my goal, what I eventually want to do, I actually started a company called Dawn Journey Productions. And my dream right now, my vision is I want to sort of turn Hollywood on its head. That's my big 20-year plan. But my 5-year plan is I actually want to build a studio that makes filmmaking even more accessible. Because one of the things you still have to deal with, the distribution model is changing now with the ad-based video. Now people are going over to Tubi and stuff like that, which is fantastic. That you can make decent money on those platforms. By the way, Jason Horton is amazing. If you guys don't know who Jason Horton is, look him up. He's an independent filmmaker. The dude is an amazing teacher, and he has wonderful information. I did an interview with him, and he's wonderful. And he talks a lot about distribution. Joe Castro is another great guy. He actually has a group about distributors and how to interact with them and stuff like that. But distribution is one of the tricky things to get into. I mean, anybody could put something on Amazon Prime, but if you actually want to really make some money, you have to kind of start flirting with the world of distributors. And it can be dangerous. There are a lot of people out there who will take advantage of you, and they'll give you $5,000 and then make $1 million off your film, and you're just left with $5,000 and blood, sweat, and tears and hours of work. I mean, like it happens all the time. So my goal is I want to start a studio, and I want to have equipment. I want to have a staff of directors. I want to have a staff of producers, and I want people just to show up on the, call me or just show up at the door and say, hey, I've got a script. I want to make a movie. Perfect. Let's take a look at it. And as long as your script fits within my company's values, we're going to help you make it. And I think what we'll end up doing is I want to build partnerships with distributors, and we'll make money off this on the tail end of the film when it gets distribution. I want to take all of that. I want first-time filmmakers who are dreamers. There's so many people out there. Quentin Tarantino, I love Tarantino, but he's not the only Tarantino out there. There are so many talented people out there who just never get a break. They never meet the right people. And I want to change that. I want to provide a safe place for people to make quality films up through distribution. And we take all of the danger out of it for you. We have partnerships. These are trustworthy distributors. We will get your film out there. We'll have the equipment. We'll have the sound stages. We'll have the people you need. Like I want to take a veteran director and make them your first AD on your project. And they're accessible to you. This is their phone number. This is their email. Call them, talk to them, ask them questions, learn the craft, learn the trade. Like one of my dreams hasn't always been, it still is, to go to film school. I hear all the time, like, film school is a waste of time. It's a waste of money. I don't feel that way about it. I really do want the formal training. I was in film school for 12 hours and then I was told I didn't have enough money to do it. So it sucked and it hurt. It was very painful because I was so excited about it, but I was like, okay, well, I guess I got to do this on my own, so I trekked out and did it on my own. But that's my dream. I want to make filmmaking safe and accessible. I want people to, not have to worry about having a smartphone. I want them to be able to use a Red, or use an RE, and have quality sound and learn editing and just learn the craft, learn about all the different rules that are out there. Because trying to learn lenses and camera stuff, and trying to learn it all at once, then learn Adobe or Film Express or DaVinci Resolve is real popular. Trying to learn all this stuff is overwhelming, and in the beginning, for most people, you're doing it by yourself, or it's you and like one or two other people. And so that's another challenge you face too, is learning to delegate. Early on, I really struggled. It wasn't that I was a control freak. I just was so used to trying to do this by myself that I had these two people who had partnered with me, and I never gave them anything to do because in my head, it's like, okay, I've got to do this, and I got to do this, and I got to go here. And so learning to delegate's tough too, but you eventually get to that point. But I would encourage anybody, like if you want to make a film, just write a script, don't don't worry about the formatting because, I mean, it's not going to go to a distributor. Write a script, get something on paper, go to your friends, get on your local film community on Facebook, find it. It's out there. And if it's not out there, guess what? Start it. Start a group called, let's say you live in, some remote city. We'll call it, I don't know. I can't think of one, but just start the community. The people are out there. They're looking for it, and that's how I got started. And I've had some relative success so far, and I've made a lot of amazing friends and a lot of amazing connections. And I'm really excited to see what the next 5 years hold for sure.
Yeah, it sounds awesome. And we're available. We work for Peanuts, so if you ever need anybody on your crew, we're just a few hours away. Also, if you ever want to need a cabin for anything, my mother has a cabin, pretty isolated, has a graveyard beside it in Cosby, Tennessee, which is right outside Gatlinburg. So if you ever need that, just let me know. We can.
Definitely. I definitely will, man.
After a good place to vacation to me.
Yeah, it's a nice free little vacation for sure.
I know just enough about audio, lighting, and editing and all that stuff to be dangerous. So
that's all you need. And see, and this is how it starts. It's just a small group of people that's like, you know what? I mean, look at what George Romero and his friends did. I mean, they made Night of the Living Dead. I mean, in the end, the movie cost like $140,000, but they all pitched in $600. They picked the best actors amongst them, and they made a movie. And that's how it starts. I mean, like and I'll tell you, like I am here right now because of other people. I just happen to be the director, but I'm sitting here talking about this movie because of the sacrifice and the love of my friends and my family and people in this community who believed in what I'm doing and loved me enough to sacrifice their time to lift me up on their shoulders. I'm not the hero in this; it's them. They're the real heroes. They just aren't in the position to be talking about this, but like I have some amazing people. I could not have done this by myself. My friend Carol Sue, Corey, Jordan, Honey, Donnie, like all these people, Brittany, Neil. I mean, all these people have just really sacrificed their time and shown love towards me to help me accomplish this dream. And it's been really amazing beyond anything I could have imagined.
Awesome. Well, before we wrap things up, do you have a release date for the film at all yet, or a time frame?
I am hoping it's going to be by the end of the year. What's holding us up right now is some of my actors are doing other projects. So we're waiting for their schedules to free up before we really just jump in head first and start filming this. So I'm hoping.
What's your release plan for the film when it's done?
I want to do a premiere in the local theater here, and I want to hit the festival circuit a little bit. And then I think I might actually start looking at doing I think I'm going to target Amazon and like Tubi and Plex and like the ad-based platforms.
You work with Central Knox at all? I know that's a theater in Knoxville I've heard of.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And remind us what the name of the film's going to be again.
Yeah, it's Blood Repentance.
Blood Repentance.
I actually have a funny story about that title. The original title for the film was Knoxferatu. And it was this
I like that.
Knoxville. And I randomly one day, Matt, the guy I was talking about earlier, he hits me up. He said, "Hey man, you need to take a look at your Twitter." And for whatever reason, I didn't get a notification for this. So I had no idea. And I actually did research titles to make sure this title wasn't taken. I'm not sure how I missed this, but somebody, like I had a post of the movie poster. Actually, behind this background is actually the poster. I posted the poster. That sounds like a weird sentence. And somebody had replied on there, like, "You need to reach out to me." And so I reached out to this person. Well, come to find out, there's a silent horror film festival in Knoxville called Knoxferatu. And I had no idea. Wow. So the person basically gave me an ultimatum. They said, change the title or you need to put some sort of disclaimer on everything you put out. That you're not affiliated with this. Now, legally, I don't think they had a leg to stand on, but they were nice about it, and I was nice about it. So I'm like, well, crap. So, yeah. So I liked that title, but I was torn, and I sought some counsel about it, and we actually decided just to rename the film. That'd be the easiest thing to do.
Yeah.
And so Mike Ankus, another person that's really invested in me. This guy is amazing. He actually has a film called Tributaries on Amazon. It's if you knew the budget he had for this film, when you look at what he's done, including filming at Comic-Con, which nobody gets to do, it's incredible what he did. But Mike is one of the executive producers on Blood Repentance. He actually donated a bunch of equipment to us. We went from filming on an iPhone to having sound equipment and a camera because of Mike and his kindness. And this is a man who lives in Pittsburgh. He only deals with Pittsburgh filmmakers. And I met Mike because he actually was one of the zombies in Day of the Dead. He was friends with Tom Savini for years. So I had him on a podcast and we just hit it off and became friends. And he knew what I was doing. He knew I was a filmmaker. And he's like, he said, there's a package in the mail to you. And I opened it up, and I mean, it's a camera, it's a sound recorder, I mean, like all this stuff, a Tascam sound recorder, just all this stuff we needed to take the film to the next level. So I mean, I will always be grateful for Mike and the love he's shown me.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's been a really incredible journey.
That's going to wrap it up for this episode of the Horror Sanctum. That was a lot of fun. I think we could spend hours just chatting with you guys. We would love to have you back sometime in the future, anytime. And like we said, if you ever need help, give us a ring. We'll come help you out.
Definitely.
Looking forward to Blood Repentance when it drops. Honestly, I'd watch anything with honey in it. I just watched Hexed last week in preparation.
Was the scene still in there with me?
Yeah.
Where I'm on the TV?
Yeah.
It's still there? Because I've got a copy and it's not on my copy. So I was wondering.
Yeah, but I watched that. It was a lot of fun. But before we sign off, I know, honey, you're doing Bride of FrankenCon. Do you have anything else lined up that you like?
Well, a couple possibles. I do also have a movie script that I'm trying to get produced. I'm not happy with the contract, so I don't know if I'll go with the production company I'm talking to now or someone else. So I am looking for a production company. I'm looking for other opportunities to do things. So if anybody knows anything, has any ideas, I've got my books that I've been putting online. They're on Amazon. So I've got my Horror Flicks Will Never Die. It's a lot of fun. You can track like 100 scary movies in it.
Nice.
It's interactive. It's a lot of fun. And then I've got, like the notebooks and some other stuff. So if you go to Honey's Books on Amazon, or if you find my Horror Flicks Will Never Die movie tracker, you can scroll down, follow me, and see all the other things that I've got on there.
All right. And you're on Instagram and Twitter.
Yes, and see, I don't do this part. What's the name of my Twitter and Amazon?
So your Twitter is at Honey Mail Girl.
Yeah.
Adding the in there made it too long for whatever reason. Your Instagram is at Honey the Mail Girl.
And then Facebook is just Honey.
Yeah, Facebook's just Honey. It's kind of buried down in there. You have
it's
to
under artist, and because when I started in 2000, I don't know, 9 or 10, whatever it was, they didn't have so many options, so it's under artist, so it's Honey Artist category.
And of course we'll push all that stuff for you too. Share all your links. So wrapping up, keep your eyes and ears peeled for Blood Repentance. Go see Honey at FrankenCon.
Please.
I think as of right now, I plan on being there.
Cool.
So we'll see. And be sure to follow us over on Instagram and subscribe to our YouTube channel and to wherever you are currently listening to this podcast. Bryan and Honey, thank you again so much for hanging out with us.
Yeah,
it's been and I'm Jay with John and TJ. And until next time,
keep it spooky.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.